Hello.
Hello.
We're not sitting together. Hey, now we're in Seattle. Welcome to Seattle. Me too. We're gonna get to our hotel and go to bed. 21.
Art Marble 21.
21. Hey, what's up? I'm here with Taylor Morrow. We played in round 1.
I died.
Alright, I'm gonna go see some Portland peeps.
I'm in the battle hard tomorrow.
Hey, what's up, Thor?
Yo!
What's up, Zach? How are you? Hey, you're on Flesh and Bad. Oh my Travelogue. Hey, say hi. All right, so I won round 1. So yeah, we're gonna see how I keep doing. What's up? Say something for the channel.
Can't tell this. Yo, don't play Marionette. Marionette sucks.
Okay, yeah, you heard it here first.
I suck at Marionette.
All right, I'm playing against Brody. Wish me luck. I don't think it's gonna go well. All right, I just got fatigued. Say hi to the channel, Brody.
Hey everyone.
Cool.
Playing Mario again.
Not make day 2.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm recording myself.
Oh yeah.
But you made day 2.
I did
Say
make
hi to
my
the channel.
first day 2
Nice, congrats.
on Verdance.
I have yet to do it. I'm gonna do it this year. Trust me. You're gonna win the battle hard, right?
I am tired.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't think you put money in the pig. Oh, you can.
Slot for money. Yeah, you put money in the pit. All right, what's up, Flesh and Baddies? Welcome back to Oh no, I can't even say this as a joke. All right, what's up, Flesh and Baddies? Welcome back to more Flesh and Bad. And today I wanted to do a quick recap of the Calling Seattle that we just went through. So I wanted to kind of go over the 2 decks that I brought, one of which is Marlynn. So we'll kind of go over my Calling Marlynn deck tech, and then my, I guess, more successful deck was the Terra Decklist, which I think I was able to kind of showcase pretty well, getting 15th place in the Battle Hardened. Definitely could have been better. I think there's definitely some room for improvement here, but yeah, we'll go through, I guess, both lists. So yeah, I guess let's start with the Marlynn list. So this Marlynn list was, I think, mostly inspired by, again, Taylor Crawford's list from Worlds. I think it's very similar in terms of the shell, but there are a couple like little differences here and there that I want to kind of talk about. So for the most part, none of these cards should be too surprising. Pretty much most of the cards are almost the exact same. The only kind of differences are in the arrows. So I think one of the changes that I opted to make was to include Hamstring over Widowmaker. This is mostly just to edge for Syndra, just to have like a better arrow. Even if it's a blue arrow, like firing a blue Hamstring for like 7 or 10 against Syndra, tends to be pretty good. So I'm a pretty big fan of the blue Hamstring shot, and it's also just very nice if you can like play it on Arsenal against Syndra. So mostly just a small swap of the Hamstring over the Widowmaker for Syndra. And then there are, I guess, a couple little standouts here with the 1-of copy of Murderous Rabble and the Riches. So to kind of conserve on sideboard slots, which are kind of tight in this list, one thing I have to do is basically move Riches into main deck, which I think is a thing that's like not terrible to do. Mainly, you can think of this card kind of as like a Garganian Tome, basically. So like refreshes your gold, draws you a card. Most of the time, like it replaces itself with either blue or buff or whatever. So I think this card's like pretty low opportunity cost to include in the main deck. That being said, there are matchups like certainly where you want to cut this, specifically in like Syndra, but normally that can like flex with like Target Trap and stuff like that. So I guess most things, like, you're not too upset like main decking Riches, and like the extra source of gold generation definitely is like super helpful against some decks as well. But yeah, also the 1-of copy of Ravenous Rebel. So this is, I think, replacing the toxicity slot in I guess Taylor's list. It's just a kind of 1-of blue to kind of like fill out a little bit of the resource base. I haven't been like too big a fan of toxicity in the past. Like, it's been okay. But the idea with Murderous Rebel was to just have like a 0 for 3 3 block that you can kind of just include in the deck, and then in like second cycle you can basically like play it maybe for like initial point of value, or you like play it off of a like 3 oak or something. You can inform the top card of your deck, and then also basically just get like an extra 3 points of value on the 3 oak turn, which is also quite nice. But again, I'm not like a super big fan of this card. I think it ended up being like okay-ish, but like it doesn't really help your kind of like core game plan of like connecting with your arrows, which is one kind of like downside here. And then the sideboard is definitely like a little bit, I guess, more interesting than maybe some previous lists. So I think we've already talked about like Red Hamstring on the channel. This mainly just an extra arrow for Syndra, which if you look at like the Syndra board, we typically don't actually run like that many arrows in that matchup. So the 2 Red Hamstring are kind of to bolster the arrow count. Like, I think if you are only running like King Shark in that matchup, and you're running like 17 arrows, then you can kind of run into situations where you like brick super hard, just like constantly every turn. So the two red hamstring were kind of help mitigate that and kind of fill the place of like King Kraken and then also like your battery bolts. And then I also really like Tar Pit Trap as a 3 of. It's mainly only for Syndra, but I also expected to see like some resurgence in like the Arachne like slip through the crack stacks as well. So this deck card ended up being like pretty good in my testing against both like the Slippy and as well as just Syndra in general. So still pretty impressed with the card. I really like it. It still has like a 3 of. But yeah, I guess let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is maybe Endless Arrow. So Endless Arrow and I guess Trench are kind of part of a thing I was trying on to Gravy, or at least Tegan, my testing partner, was a little bit annoyed by it basically. But what I had for the Gravy plan was almost this kind of like fatigue tempo pivot plan. So I'll kind of like talk about the high level theory of this plan, right? So one of the key issues with Endless Arrow, right, is that once in the Gravy matchup, which is basically like the only time you played this card, at least in my opinion, but the key issue with like Endless in the Gravy matchup historically has been like, okay, so you play Endless, it has to go back into Arsenal so that you can like fire again next turn. Then your Gravy like knows you're gonna be on Endless, so they can like take a setup turn. Maybe you have to either like play out Endless to just send some damage, or you just want to like sit on Endless forever and then they get a ton of turns to set up. So that's kind of like the key downside of why like Endless I think has been like moved away from Sunless. That being said, it's still like really effective, especially if your opponent is not like teching for like a fatigue plan for Marlynn, which I think like it's about like 50-50 whether or not they actually like kind of like know about the Marlynn fatigue plan. Maybe even will like maybe it's like 70% that they don't know about the Marlynn fatigue plan. So I guess it's kind of like an interesting stress on the Gravy side, right? Is like they don't know whether to board for fatigue Marlin or to board for like a more like tempo aggro Marlin. So I feel like the Endless actually ended up being really good. And one of the nice things that Endless does with Trench is that you like if your opponent ever takes like a sub turn, you like trench away the Endless and just send like a King Kraken for like 13 or something like that. So I actually ended up feeling like I had a lot more agency in the Gravy matchup just by like having this kind of like Endless package with the trenches. I know there are also a bunch of other kind of like viable fatigue plans. Like I've seen like some interesting stuff like Unmovable, as well as trying to think about it. Like you can also do like the swells and the drop dingers and stuff. But I think for this tournament, I was actually like I think pretty happy with the inclusion of like Endless Arrow, because I think that most Gravies like kind of weren't really expecting it too much. And yeah, I think that I guess brings us to the final card on the sideboard, which is Honing Hood. I think most of my Syndra the only matchup I think I ran this into was Syndra, and I think both my Syndra opponents like weren't, or one of my Syndra opponents like wasn't basically running Warmongers. And the card ended up being useless, but I guess it was an interesting hedge, especially with a lot of like the Marionette deck list. There were a lot of speculations on how representative Warmongers would be in certain lists, so I think it was like an interesting hedge for the tournament, but didn't end up actually mattering. But yeah, I'll also kind of go over, I guess, my quick notes for the calling. So round one Syndra, I won the first matchup of the calling. This Syndra matchup was probably the most one-sided game of Fab I think I've ever played. It was kind of awesome. So I basically hit them, I think, with like 3 or 4 King Sharks in a row, and they kind of like just died, which sometimes happens, and it obviously kind of feels pretty nice to just send like 40 damage in King Sharks versus a Syndra. Round 2 was against a Marionette. So this was Jacob Clements piloting the deck. This matchup I think was definitely winnable on my side. I just think I kind of just drew like a weird sequence of cards. I think this matchup is like okay for us, but you do have to kind of like roll pretty hot. And I think that like the way I was drawing, I just like wasn't rolling hot enough. But yeah, I think they also had like a pretty good like Black Widow flip early, which made things like a little bit complicated. So yeah, the matchup still like the matchup with just the like the 9 Polycera or whatever it is, like they it feels like just very, very tough. That being said, we did get the BNR, so maybe that's less of an issue now. But yeah, I think that overall, like I still think this matchup is like a little bit difficult. It definitely feels like maybe slightly 50-50 to favor for us, but still not like 100% confident in this matchup. Right, and then moving on to our round 3 opponent. So this is against Dio. This is from Luke Harris, so he's one of our locals, and he goes by Anarchy Please on YouTube. And again, in this matchup, I think this matchup is also like one of those really swingy matchups where if like the Dio gets like a really good head start and you can't send a arrow to really get over the damage threshold of their armor, then this match can be really tough. But I was fortunately able to just send like a Disruptive Harpoon pretty much like every turn. Maybe I took like 1 turn off. But yeah, the disruption ended up adding up, and it was able to kind of clutch the win on that one. All right, and this is where the calling experience all unfortunately went downhill. So round 4 Huntsman, again, this is probably one of our tougher matchups right now. And the interesting thing about this matchup is I think I probably boarded wrong. So if you actually look at, I have this labeled as Arachne Miserable. If you look at my Arachne Miserable board, it's actually like 66 cards, which is like maybe honestly even too much. Like maybe there's a consideration to like adding like the battering bolsters. Like I don't know, maybe even now like 63 is reasonable because basically like what the Huntsman was doing was they weren't on like the full react plan into me, which is I like normally what I kind of like expect out of Talishar, but they were doing like a mix of like the go again attacks into like a contract attack, which ended up like adding up a lot of like disruptive damage. Very like kind of cool version of the build, but I actually ended up like losing on the basis of just like not seeing my three oaks at all. Basically, like I think my deck got shuffled at one point, and then I like my three oaks were in like the bottom like 10 of my deck or something like that. So that ended up being really awkward. So unfortunately, lost to the Huntsman there. But I think under maybe I don't know. This matchup is like kind of just like very frustrating on the Marlin side because you don't really know like kind of what to expect, I guess, from the Arachne opponent. If they're doing like the full turtle strat, you want to board kind of one way, but if they're doing like a more like aggro Huntsman, then it can be like a little bit awkward to kind of like board that way. All right, and then finally, the final round to knock me out was against RKO. I think this matchup is like not that bad if you draw well, but unfortunately, again, I'm really bad at drawing well. Apparently, 2 3 hooks in the bottom like 10 cards of the deck, I think, and then the 1 3 hook I have was like just a 3 hook for 10, so I wasn't really able to like get over a lot of their like damage threshold, and then they basically just got like a really good like turn 0 sigil start against me. So basically started the game with the like booing mechanic, basically like or the mocking blow effect, like basically always on. But yeah, the RKO matchup can be pretty tough if they get like a really good early start, and if they also see like a really good pummel at one point in the game, which I think they did. The matchup can definitely kind of go a little bit poorly, at least on our end. Yep, so this was my calling Marlin deck list. Again, not super impressive results, 2 and 3. So again, not great, but I think the deck list is honestly like fine and like pilots pretty well. The only maybe just either like a pilot issue or also just a gem roulette issue because I do think that some of these matchups are like a little bit less than favorable against us. All right, calling deck list out of the way. Let's go ahead and move on to the battle hardened list. So I was actually able to get this list to 15th in the battle hardened, which is really cool. So basically, I was able to top 16. I think I got like a Pro Tour point or some random non-monetary prize. But yeah, this is the list that I basically brought. Some very minor tweaks just for chain, and I'll kind of talk about that matchup in a little bit. But yeah, I ended up going 6 and 2 with this deck, with my only losses being to Reinar, which is basically like an auto loss, and then 1 chain, I think, pretty later on in kind of like the bracket. So two kind of acceptable losses. I think that chain it's kind of interesting because like the chain lists that I was expecting were not actually what I was playing into, which is really interesting, and we'll kind of touch on that in a little bit. Yeah, but the deck list felt like really good into Ira's, Guardians, like Azalea, I think, and Warriors. Like those were basically the other kind of matchups they played. And those basically all felt like kind of unlosable. Like I just felt like very, very far ahead with a lot of like, I guess like the tech that we have for those specific matchups. But yeah, we can actually pull up the matchups on like Fab Blazing. So this is kind of interesting. So this is for some reason one of these like Marlin matchups like shows up under here. But anyways, first round was against Oldhim, so I think very favorable matchup. Again, I think that one of like the reasons to play Terra is that your Oldhim matchup is like basically for you, which is kind of nuts. I think I even went second into this Oldhim, and I still ended up like fatiguing them by like 3 or 4 cards, which is really cool. So yeah, the Terramites end up they really do add up a lot over the course of like a lot of these longer games. And again, this is one of those matchups where you're swinging Sludge for like 20 turns, which is also really fun. And then we also had, I guess, another like slow Guardian matchup against David. I think David was playing like a earlier iteration of the list, and I think they're also on the Discord as well. So big shout out to David. I think like the Terramir, I think I won the die roll. I can't actually remember if I won the die roll or lost the die roll this one. But anyways, like I think that like the die roll maybe doesn't matter like a ton in this matchup. But like again, it's mostly just focused on like the grindy value plays, like trying to set up like good pummels and stuff like that. This matchup was kind of interesting because I think I just like pummeled on a sledge, and they didn't have like a react for it. And then their pummel I was able to like block out with like a staunch plus like a oasis or something. So a little bit unfortunate on their side. But yeah, the Terramir is actually like surprisingly interesting. Just like getting your 1 to 2 points of chip value every turn and like making sure you like max out the value over the course of the long game. Round 3 again, lost to the Reiner. This person I think ended up like bubbling out at 9th. I think they're also like member of the AGE team. This is basically like I think the version of Reiner they were running was like the quad or like the triple barraging beatdown plus the new like smell fear card from the new like armory deck Reiner. So they basically had like 15 copies of or no sorry not 15 copies. They basically had 10 copies of like barraging beatdown. So I think they saw like 4 in a turn, and then they were able to send the what's it called the meat axe or whatever. And I basically got like quad intimidated and died. So this matchup I think is like pretty rough, especially if they're doing like the barraging plan. If they're not doing the barraging plan, they're doing like more of like a KO plan. I think it becomes a lot more doable. But yeah, like the quad barraging beatdown thing is definitely like pretty difficult to kind of like interact with, I guess, on the Terra side. So lost that one. I don't really feel like particularly bad about that one. I think that's just probably a rough matchup. All right, going in round 4, played against Azalea. I think Azalea is one of like Terra's like easier matchups. So again, not much to like really say about this matchup. I think they kind of struggle to like set up dominate and stuff. So a lot of the turns I was able to just like block out without like having to worry about dominate, which is really awesome. And then moving on to I guess the last loss, unfortunately, which was against Chain. So this actually kind of brings me to maybe an interesting point. And I guess we can also talk about like what the wins against like Ira, and Kasai. I think these are all like pretty good matchups for us. But the Chain matchup is probably the one that I have to probably work on improving the most, especially if I'm planning on maybe potentially going like San Diego. So the Chain matchup is pretty rough, and I think that there are like kind of like 2 different camps that the Chains are kind of falling into. So there's like the first camp that are doing kind of like the like Rainbow Mauve, or not even like Rainbow Mauve, but like pretty close to Rainbow Mauve, where they're just trying to like set up like a Putrid Soarings on like a big attack with a Mauve on it, and then hope you can't block it, and then basically get to like set up another like Rune Gate attack on the back end. So you can't really like block out everything that your opponent's doing in like the Chain Mirror, especially with like Mauve. So I think Mauve is actually like probably the better kind of strat. A lot of chains are also doing like pummels, and not just like the 2 red pummels, but they're also like doing some 2 blue pummels. So we can actually kind of look at like an example of like that list. I think this Jude's list, Jude, I think also like top 8 the Seattle Battle Hardened. He was on like 4 copies of pummels and not on. He was on like 2 mob or something like that. But anyways, it seems like there's kind of like a key difference here between like the more D-reacty one that's running kind of like the pummels as well. And then also like the, I guess kind of like maybe looking at the first place list, like this list is basically on like Rainbow Mauve to kind of like just get an on hit in and basically like set up as much Rune Gate as possible, as well as like setting up some runes with like Rune Blade Incantation and some other kind of like Rune Chant generation as well. So yeah, those are kind of like the key differences, I guess, between the chain lists that I kind of saw. And I think the one I lost to was a lot more kind of like Rainbow Mauve stuff. Maybe not like full Rainbow Mauve, but definitely on like red and yellow Mauves and no D-Reacts. So that actually kind of brings me to the tech that I was including list, which is the one of Wreck Havoc. So I think into Jude's list, who was actually like testing it into like the day before, the Wreck Havoc I think would have been kind of interesting because I think they're on maybe like 4 to 6 copies of D-Reacts into me, which also makes like the Roost to Rune Chance like a lot worse. So that was kind of like the idea behind the Wreck Havoc. That being said, I think there's maybe some opportunity for some like better cards than this. And again, like it's only like one of, so it's not like super impactful. Yeah, and I think like the chain that I was playing this into, like basically wasn't running any of the like D-Reacts. They're basically just running a ton of like rune chant generation, like the blessing of the occults and stuff like that. So anyways, I think this deck was still like pretty solid. Again, like the humbles and the pummels still feel really good. Like Sidebird here feels really good. The one card that actually like ended up killing me in the chain matchup though was like Arcane Polarity. So I think I was like pretty ahead on life. I drew into like Arcane Polarity into like maybe like eight value worth of block in hand or something like that. And then my opponent sends like a Putrid Soarings with a red mauve plus a plus like a maybe like a Phantom Banshee or something like that. So it ended up coming in for like 11 or 12 or something like that, and I basically like wasn't able to fully block it because the Arcane Polarity. So it's actually like kind of making me consider cutting Arcane Polarity from the board, or maybe like bringing it to like a 1 of or something. Just being able to block is super important on to like the big rune chant attacks, or like the big like Rune Gate attacks. So like having the Arcane Polarity, I think actually like ended up losing me that game, and like it's definitely still like super awkward against like Reaping Blade and stuff like that. So this card is like kind of a liability in a lot of situations. Like blocking the physical damage ends up being like a lot more important than blocking like the arcane damage. Even though they can set up like a ton of like scary arcane damage, like 10 to 12 or whatever like that. But yeah, anyways, I still feel like really good about this list. I think that like when piloted super well, I think this list seems really good. I also think I went up on like a block card or something like that, just to have like extra like block padding in the chain because I realized that like being able to block in the chain was really important. That being said, didn't end up mattering. But again, like the 8 block cards is probably like the max limit I would go to. Again, 10 still seems like a little bit too much. But yeah, that was basically my recap of my performance at Calling Seattle. I also wanted to shout out a couple other people. So Tegan, I think, just barely missed out on the calling day 2. I think Tegan was basically like 4 and 3. So a little bit unfortunate, but I think Tegan will get there next time. And then one of our friends, Nick Tiller, I think also ended up cashing the calling, which is really awesome with Verdance. So shout out to Nick as well for killing on Verdance. But yeah, anyways, the calling was a ton of fun. Again, we got to see a ton of our friends and just like hang out with folks. And again, you probably saw in like the maybe like the introduction or whatever, we kind of did like a little montage of all that. So again, really fun. Also in Terra news, it seems like we're maybe potentially getting like a new card here, which is also really awesome. Or at least this was kind of like some spoiler like art that they kind of announced. So this is like maybe indicating to me like some kind of like Earth non-attack action or something. Like just the way it looks like, it doesn't look like it's like an attack or something, which is really cool. So I'm definitely kind of speculating like what this can add to Terra. And maybe Terra will be viable in Compendium of Wraith, who knows. This could definitely be like really, really cool. So definitely big news for the Terra enjoyers out there. I know a lot of people play this deck actually at the Calling Seattle. And again, I think this maybe bodes well for all of us out there. And now we have the big news of the bans. Again, I'm probably a little bit late on this since we were traveling for the Calling Seattle, but again, I think these are actually really good bans. Basically just kind of nerfing a lot of the top decks right now. So it's hitting Marionette, it's hitting Syndra, hitting Gravy, and also hitting kind of the Earth Heroes as well. And then I guess Fi is also catching strays with the Brain of Cinder Claw. But again, I think these are all like pretty reasonable bans, just kind of like limiting the power level of a lot of these decks. I know Wrath in particular was just like a one of random power card that was like super easy to activate. So I think it kind of makes sense to ban that card, as well as like reducing consistency with Brand of Cinderclaw and making the draconic stuff like a little bit harder to turn on. I think we saw in a lot of the Cinder lists that they're basically just like super easily able to like get the like fealty effect or just like the make something else draconic effect with no real like downside. So I think that this was also like a pretty good ban for at least the consistency of the deck. Maybe that'll also make it just like a little bit more interesting from like a deck building perspective. Maybe they have to like add more like fealty generation or mark or whatever. Then we also saw some consistency bans from I guess some of the other top decks. So we saw Turret the High Seas ban. So this was kind of like Gravy's like one card high roll play card. Like this card was just nuts. But again, I don't think the deck is like all that bad, because if you look at it, like Gravy's losing basically like one of his worst matchups. So yeah, like Gravy's losing like a 2% power bump to have like one of his worst matchups gone, which is definitely like kind of an actually like okay trade for him. And then we also saw Orb Weaver Spinneret blue and yellow bans. This is mostly affecting Marionette. And I think like this kind of I think this is probably a pretty good like preemptive ban. Like I don't know, just having like Calypsora like come in for like 16, 15 just like super consistently was like kind of annoying. So maybe like adding like a hit to that deck was actually like a really good thing. Also means that they can't just like flick daggers as much, and they have to be maybe like a little bit more conservative with the Calypsora or something like that. But I think that's definitely like a good thing, just for like the overall of the game, because like those Calypsoras were just like so hard to block. It was actually like kind of ridiculous. And then last ban was the Rootbound Carapace. So this unfortunately I think does hurt Earth Jarl as well, which I think was a deck like that was me like falling out of popularity with the rise of I guess the like the more fatigue oriented Jarls, but kind of like kills that deck, and then also does a number on Verdance and Florian as well. So it'll definitely be interesting to see like how the Earth decks, I guess, kind of adapt from this, because I think you now have to run like more decompose attacks to like kind of compensate and like turn on a little bit faster. Which is probably for the best, honestly. Like having Rootbound just like kind of complete your quest for you was like kind of a little bit toxic. So again, I think these are like all in all like pretty good bans. I'm pretty happy with them, and I think they do kind of like open up a lot of design space for CC as well. And then if you also note here at the end of the ban list, they also make a note that Silver Age is currently I don't think they're going to basically be updating it until February 2nd, it looks like, which is like right before or maybe like after the pre-release or something for Compendium. So this Silver Age will basically stay as is until further notice. It seems like, which is really interesting because I do think that chain is like definitely kind of like a power outlier, especially with like a lot of the equipment setup that chain has. Like ebb and fold being basically like draw a card and also make something in your hand like kind of free is like kind of insane. But yeah, I'm assuming that at some point chain will probably eat a ban, but it looks like they're kind of just like not focused on Silver Age for at least a little bit until Compendium starts coming out. With the calling recap out of the way, as well as the BNR update, I wanted to actually quickly plug our Ko-fi shop. So we actually are now going to be selling those Marlynn tokens, or the Marlynn Gold tokens from the 24-hour stream. So again, these tokens are really awesome. I know a lot of people have been asking about them or like DMing me. But yeah, now they are available to the whole public. So we figured out the whole Ko-fi system and we've been testing it out. But yeah, if you want to get your hands on a Marlynn token, they come in 2 different borders. And then yeah, I think a lot of people think they're really awesome. We've been using them a ton, and just people seem to love these tokens in general. So yeah, again, if you want to go support us on Ko-fi, feel free. And again, these tokens were produced by Opus Arts as well as Rangomos. So thank you to everyone, I guess, who was involved, I guess, in the creation of these tokens and who just likes them and wants to order them. So yeah, if you're interested in getting those, feel free to check them out here. All right, but the deck that I want to actually play, I want to actually do a little bit more chain theory crafting. So I think the chain matchup for this deck is like okay, but I still think that if chain is going to be like one of the better decks in the format, we do probably have to adjust the deck to be a little bit more tech for chain than tech for basically anything else, right? So there's one card I want to try out today that targets, I think, the kind of like Mauve chain that we're kind of talking about earlier, as opposed to like the D-React chain. That card is Hand Behind the Pen. So this is an interesting one. So when this hits a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish a non-attack action from their arsenal. So actually, no, is that terrible? Banish it. The disruptive card I actually want to try out today is Cut Down Aside. So if we can actually force chain off of 4-card hands, I think that there's a lot of merit to this card. So like forcing chain to basically block with something. And then also just like a nice pummel target to combo with that. And you can also make them mine in the back. So I think there's a lot of like interesting utility for this card. Again, stat line's like not super impressive, but I think it seems decent into like the more kind of like aggro decks. So I want to actually give this card a try out today. The other card that I was actually considering for this video is Hand Behind the Pen, which I think is interesting into like the Mauve, or like the Rainbow Mauve version of Chain. The one unfortunate downside of this card is that if your opponent arsenals like a Putrid Rings or something, you would like banish it for them, and it functionally does nothing. So there's like a little bit of a drawback. There's some interesting portions of this card, but there's also like I feel like a little bit of a drawback. And that being said, it also only affects the arsenal. So if your opponent doesn't keep an arsenal and they just like set up like a big like banish or like rune chant setup, this card can sometimes just like be useless, right? But yeah, one also thing about this list that I cut down on the arcane player, mainly because I think into chain it's like kind of bad at more than a one of. Like just not having the ability to like block out a Mauve can like actually like, just like kill you some games. Like I kind of saw in the Calling Seattle or in the Battle Hardened Seattle. But yeah, I think like arcane Blurry as one of still makes sense, just like have a little bit more extra life padding. But I think that if you are like caught on like multiple copies of this card, it can definitely be like more of a liability than it's worth. All right, but yeah, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and do some more Terra gameplay. Again, I think I'm going to do some Marlynn gaming later this week, or I think we have like a separate Marlynn video, so if you're interested in seeing that, feel free. But yeah, let's go ahead and just play some more Terra today. Also, just want to give a quick shout out that this video is sponsored by Fab Foundry, your one-stop shop for all things Fab. Fab Foundry is my personal favorite LGS and has a great selection of Fab singles, sealed product, and accessories. And they are also going to be your host for several large tournaments coming up, Calling Columbus, Calling Memphis, and Pro Tour Las Vegas. Feel free to use our promo code FleshandBad for 5% off your next order. So go check them out. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the games. All right, playing against an Ira. Let's see how it goes. And I've not found this matchup to be like particularly challenging, though. They are opting to choose to go first, which I think is generally correct. I didn't think I generally actually board out one of these pummels here. I think I do like one pummel, 2 humbles. Let's go and try like this though. It goes. Right, we are on Kodachi Iro, which is pretty standard. Opponent will go ahead and start off with the sound the alarm here. Okay. I think I might just go ahead and use the staunch up here. It is tempting to like hold on to it for next turn though. Could also just like double luck here, but I think we'll just go for like the fatigue value, I guess. Technically only losing 1 card in deck, and I guess playing around potential Razor Reflex, although I don't know why to use that. I think holding on to the Sirens to safe harbor is just an attack to send next turn is pretty good. All right, so we actually know that the start of their pitch here is now the Bittering Thorns. So the second Bittering Thorns we see should indicate that. All right, let's go ahead and just send out the Sirens here. We get to sit on an Oasis, which is at least nice. Let's basically get our nice little like 8 value kind of turn cycle here. All right, they're going to go ahead and give us the Torrent tempo here, which makes sense. Then we'll go ahead and just get 2 points of value back, which is great. Right there. All right, this hand's going to be like a little bit awkward offensively, but probably make it work. Maybe we're just going to end up sending like the Sirens to safe harbor depending on what they do. We do definitely want to send something because we're going to have probably 2 mites this turn. So even if we're just sending Titan Swiss for 5 or something, I think that's also acceptable. All right, pitching a Scar for a Scar as well, so that's something to keep track of in late game. All right, so don't really have to worry about being at a higher life total anymore. So let's go ahead and actually just use up the flash here. We could actually also staunch this, but then that does open us up to being potentially disrupted on the back. Maybe staunch is actually better though, because we do get to make the might and then preserve a clash card in the deck. Maybe that's actually better. It's a little bit more efficient, especially if they don't have a blue on this hand. That's at least my thought. If they're like pitching a red, they maybe don't have the ability to swing like a 2-cost or something. All right, so it seems like they're also pitching the Bittering for later as well. Very interesting. Yeah, we're gonna send another Sirens for 6, which should be nice. But yeah, them preserving the Bitterings is actually really smart because it's gonna play around our Civic Duty pretty well. That being said, they're gonna hit a pitch stack of like 3 reds in a row, if I'm not wrong, because I think they just pitched like their pitch stack is like 2 red Bitterings to a Scar for Scar. So definitely a bit awkward. But that's actually a good thing to know is that our Civic Duty is not going to be online for quite a bit. It also looks like we're on maybe some kind of more like tempo IRA as opposed to just like a full-on aggressive IRA. It seems like they're more so playing these like 1 for 5 chain enders. It's always a lot of variety, I guess, in these IRA lists. It's kind of hard to tell what the differences are, but like generally if you see cards like kind of like this Sound the Alarms and stuff like that, it means that they're running like more chain enders than normal, I guess. All right, so what does this hand want us to do? We could end up just like sending Disable if we want to block with like the Clash of Heads here. That's one option. I've also been sitting on that Arsenal for a while, so I'm curious what this is. Yeah, so it seems like they're doing more of the kind of IRA that's kind of just doing like 2-card value plays, it seems like. I think here we're just going to get our 4 value, send Disable, and then make a might on the back. I think it's like the most efficient line. Otherwise, if we're like blocking with any more, then we're kind of like losing value there. Yeah, it seems like they're on more of kind of like the more fatiguing, like this is the kind of IRA we're actually a little bit more worried about, I think, because they're running a lot more bigger attacks that can kind of take deck value out of us, basically. The nice thing about this IRA is they can't go as wide, though, so they often can't really punish you for the Quicken token as hard, so I'll maybe try to look to use that some point soon, hopefully. All right, but for now, we're just kind of trading blows back and forth. I think this next turn actually might be a really decent excuse to go ahead and just use the Quicken token, especially if they just present like Dagger or something like that into like 1 cost. They probably are not going to have like a super great way to like punish us for doing that. So take the first Kodachi here and then maybe just try to punish them on the second Kodachi. Okay, they were sitting on a Razor here. So does this change our play at all? You might actually just want to go ahead and Oasis this. Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. And then we'll also have the 1 floating in case we want to activate the Iron Hides as well. So it seems efficient. Do it on the left one. Kind of makes sense. They were probably sitting on a Razor for a while. Again, Razors are typically like a bit better in the late game. So I think now we have 1 other card in hand. I mean, giving them the Quicken token here is probably too early. I think we'll go ahead and just give them the rounds here and then just send a 7 Humble on our turn. They do have a follow-up. We do have the Iron Hides that we could make use of. We actually probably could have used that there if we wanted to like save the Renounced Grandeur, but like I don't think that's like a super big priority. Plus we have another Oasis in the deck, so we'll always get an opportunity to I think use our Iron Hides here. Oh, but yeah, this matchup's gonna be grind. That being said, we are I think pretty even on deck at this point. And they also haven't been pressuring us a ton, which is nice, which means that we're like a lot safer, I guess, in kind of like the early game. Right, looks like they're maybe going to give us like a D-React here or something. Okay, no, they're just going to take the Humble. Which I think makes sense. Like, Humble's not like really all that disruptive against Ira. Like, you basically just get an extra point of value when it hits. I guess it is semi-relevant just in terms of like slowing the bleeding a bit. Alright, so here we probably want to just hit him with another Humble in the back and then fish the fruits. So ideally looking for an opportunity to maybe like block 7 on something. Worst case scenario, we can also just like discard the fruits and like send 8, like functionally 8 value or something like that. Alright, looks like they're going to follow up with the Bluster buff. I imagine they're probably going to pay here. Yeah, makes sense. They're on the flying kick as well. They do actually have to be a bit careful about fatigue here. And we're definitely giving up the Clash of Arms here. I'm just wondering if we're going to do anything else. Like, we could also block with a Thunderquake, but losing the 1 point of value is a little awkward. I think it still makes sense, like, curve-wise. Like, we get to make a Might on the back of the Humble. And, like, I don't really want to be discarding fruits because it's decent value in the late game. Yeah, this kind of Ira, you definitely want to be a little bit more kind of, like, value-oriented, I think. Just focusing on getting like your good 2-card math plays in, I think it's more important than just trying to send this, because I think with the number of like 2 costs they're running or like the 2-in-1 costs, you can't just like fatigue them through Fist. You have to like actually be sending like proactive stuff. Like I think our game plan is basically getting them to like Titan's Fist Kadachi range. Basically, that's kind of like our win con for this game. Alright, looks like we got a chest puff out of them, which is nice. Alright, and we got a low value Somersault, which is also great for us. Again, they're really like, I guess the way to kind of differentiate this Ira between like the other more aggressive Iras is they're really only sending like 2-card hands basically every turn. So our main goal is to basically just try to outmath those kind of hands. We should also probably be expecting another Razor Reflex. It's also kind of interesting that they're running the Razor in this deck. This kind of seems almost like kind of bad, right? Because they don't have like they're running a lot of like the 2 costs as well. I guess they do have some of the 1 cost they can use. I'm actually kind of curious if they're also running Pummel, because I know that some variants of Ira do run that. All right, here we have the choice between blocking with the Autumn's Touch. I think it's probably reasonable to go and just give a little bit of armor here. Just so, like, if they do have something random in Arsenal, they can't really play it out. We actually give them the Vigor token. We know that they're not going to be able to use it effectively. Quicken's also kind of interesting. There's a choice here. What happens if we give them the Quicken token and just send, what is this, like, 10 damage? 10 damage is pretty good. Like, they're going to have to probably give, like, they've been giving us so many cards that they're probably going to have to on the next turn, so I think maybe this is actually, like, a safe Quicken. It's kind of awkward, though, because, like, we did just, like, block out the Torrent to deny the action point, but now we're, like, giving them an action point. We'll see if they can actually make use of it. I think sending 10 here is, like, kind of worth still. It's at least pretty good for the fatigue value, which I think we are now... I can't tell if we're winning or losing, so we have 25 here to their 26, but they have to give us cards. So I think we're winning on tempo and also slightly winning on deck. But it definitely depends how much value this Quicken will give them. All right, they do have the immovable to punish here, unfortunately, but it is only immovable for 7, so not the worst thing in the world. It looks like we probably are going to actually end up denying that Quicken value there, which is also quite nice. All right, so interesting next hand. It's kind of bad. I guess it's just Titan's Fist, basically. But again, they're not really representing much pressure here, which is also really good. And then their pitch stack is like pretty bad. So I'll go ahead and give up on our one cheeky pummel because I think we already used a majority of our better targets for it. And I do want to just potentially sit on Oasis for like Razor Reflex or whatever. All right, coming in for 2. Let's go ahead. We can actually just like let this happen if we really wanted to. But I think maybe wiser to go ahead and just give the block card. Right, so our opponent is definitely unmovable, so maybe they also have a second copy, which does disincentivize me slightly from sending larger attacks. There's the On the Horizon, so I think that's the last 4 block card in their deck. And they do have potentially another Somersault, potentially another Unmovable that we at least have to worry about defensively. That being said, we do have Oasis set up here, so if we can leak a little bit of damage and then go into Oasis range, that'll be pretty good for us. Right, this hand is a bit awkward. Again, this is probably just another Titan's Fist hand, unfortunately. Maybe we're actually going to end up just sitting on the Oasis for now until they show us either the second Razor Reflex or something else we have to care about. All right, let's give them Mulch here. And maybe just like block with their 2 Clash cards on whatever they do next. Yeah, a couple little awkward turns here. Yeah, these 2 costs are definitely going to start to add up in terms of just like their deck value. That being said, we do still have a bit of armor to work with, so I'm not too concerned. And if they are slowing down the game, it does mean that our Civic Duty will at some point get pretty good. Go ahead, keep sending this though. So what do we have left to worry about? We have 1 more Sirens to worry about. We have those 2 Bittering Thorns that are still in the deck. We have that Scar that was also pitched next to them. They're just going to give the Blade Beckoner here. Okay, interesting. Dipping a little bit lower, so it looks like they can maybe capitalize on this full hand, which is kind of scary. So maybe they are actually on the pummel. That's at least what this indicates to me. Or maybe they just had like another all-red hand or something. So is this a hand where I want to give them another Quicken? I feel like that's maybe a... They did pitch a red, though. I feel like that actually indicates something that, like, maybe it's fine to give a Quicken here. Although that being said, if it's an all-red hand, and they can't... No, I think it's still a little bit too unsafe to give the Quicken. If they show us something else that we can maybe... Like, if they pitch, like, another red to dagger here, then I think I'd feel, like, a little bit safer. Okay, they did still have the extra blue here, looks like. No, in that case, I think I'm just going to go ahead and play towards the fist again. Probably just staunch whatever they do next. I'm assuming it's probably just a 2 cost or something. Okay, just a 1 cost. So I'm glad I definitely didn't give them the Civic Steps because they have 2 cards they're functionally not really able to use. And we'll go ahead and just staunch this. Yeah, I think we're still in a decent spot fatigue-wise, but it definitely gets a little bit scary, especially against like this variant of the deck. That being said, our Titan's Fist will make their Unmovable a bit awkward. I'm almost wondering if that's what they've been sitting on. It's just another copy of Unmovable. It looks like they're just going to take the 4 still. Like, I'm almost predicting that this card in Arsenal is potentially Unmovable. They haven't like played it in a while, and they've also been like keeping these really awkward hands, it seems. Like, it seems like they're not able to get like full utility out of their hands, which is like almost why I don't really want to give them the Quicken token just yet. All right, let's go ahead and just keep taking the damage though. Probably looking to try to play the Sirens. Okay, so they had the Razor actually here. So the question here is, do we want to allow the Razor to go through? I think the answer is probably, or actually, hold on, sorry. Back that up very slightly. Okay, they don't want to back it up. That's fine. I will probably say that's fine. Actually, take the damage. All right, let's go ahead. Then, in this case, think we can go ahead and just take another 3 here. Block here, and then maybe try to use the, or actually we could also dip to like 6 if we wanted to. And is definitely a bit interesting. Could also maybe just try to cash in the Ironhides here. I don't think that's also that bad. So maybe actually go for the Ironhide play. Just use them before you get a little bit too low. So they should be at some point coming back around to that Bittering Thorns. So there's the Flying Kick as well. So we'd staunch go to 7, send that, or we go to 6. That's maybe worth it. Could also give up the Buckler, but I think it's a little bit too early for that. So let's go ahead and just staunch this. I think we can leak 2. Yeah, and our Oasis is a little bit awkward here, mainly because we weren't able to do that, but it's all right. So they are doing pretty well, at least on fatigue value, it looks like. But they do have a lot of blues still left in their deck, and our blues tend to be a little bit better because we can use them for sludge. So let's see what they still got here. Giving us these Sirens plus Blood Scent. Maybe means their hand's actually a little bit awkward if this is all they're giving us. They're dipping down to 3 and 6. Again, we should be hitting their stack shortly here. Or 4 and 7, I guess, rather. They do still have access to the old Tiger setup here as well. That being said, we don't have to play around Razor Reflex anymore, which is really nice. We do have a couple 2 costs left to worry about, a couple like of the 0 for 4, 0 for 5, whatever. All right, so actually the second Scar means that they're on double bittering now, right? Like that's what their hand is now. Actually, that means we can actually go ahead and get, so I think we're at their stack at this point, right? I think so. So this means we can actually give them the Civics, I think. Because they used the other Scar for Scar, so they pitched the Scar for Scar, that means their hand's like 2 bitterings, I think. Or maybe like their hand's like a blue plus a bittering or something. All right, going to go ahead and cash in that Tiger. What do we want to do here? I don't think their hand is like bittering something, right? I don't think they had any like other 1 cost go against that we really have to worry about. Maybe this is actually the opportunity to go ahead and use the Civic Duty. The only question, I guess, is are they going to draw into a 1 cost next turn or be able to save 1? That's the only issue. Maybe in that case, let's go ahead and maybe just cash in the Buckler block. I guess we don't have to do that either. We can maybe also use the Canopy or something. Let's actually maybe just go ahead and use the Canopy here, since I probably want to end up just pitching the Autumn Touch on my turn. It maybe also means they have an extra resource to use for the Blood Scent here. Okay, so there's the Bittering Thorns and pitch. They're still not playing the Bittering, but they do have another Bittering that I know about. It's either on top of their deck or it's that card in hand. So go ahead and just take the 1 here, I guess. They just leave us with this hand. We're actually kind of fine with it. Nice. It seems like they're going to go ahead and pop that. Okay, they do still have the Looking for Scraps. I actually don't think I've seen another one. So their Arsenal might be looking for a scrap at this point, because I don't think we've seen them pitch it, right? At least not that I can remember. Go ahead and give them the 1 block here, and then the Clash of Shields, I guess. Maybe the best use of a block. I don't think they've even shown us like Snatch or anything. I don't think they have too much here. Now the question is, do we want to preserve the deck value or do we want to preserve the life value? I think actually having the deck value is maybe slightly better, because we do know that they still have that unmovable, so like pumping this might not even actually really matter. Like this still demands unmovable, kind of. And we still have our Civic Duty to play too, so they still have that Bittering Thorns that's still lingering around in the deck. They also pitch the Scar. So I think we still got some decent game left. So I guess the question is, do we want to go ahead and give them the resource we're looking for scrap? We're almost getting to that point where we might just not care anymore. I can just use the Blade Beckoner here, though. Just cash in the 1 extra point of value. I mainly just use this to block Kadachi for 1 anyways. So there's the Bittering. So that one was on top of their deck. Interesting. Okay. So now, what do we give to this, I guess, is the question. I guess we can, like, let this hit and then block the next thing, maybe? Do something like that. I think that's fine. Maybe just getting the 1 point here and then blocking the next thing is okay. Let's go ahead and give them the Clash of Legs here. Also save the Clash of Legs, maybe block with the Macho instead. My prediction is maybe their arsenal is immovable at this point. Just based on that, we haven't seen the other one. Or maybe they're also just like sandbagging with looking for scrap for the opportunity when we give them the civics. I think those are both pretty reasonable plays. They should be at mostly blues at this point, though. All right, taking 2. We do have the Oasis as backup here, so I think we're still pretty safe life total-wise. All right, let's go ahead and take the 1 here. You know, we do have to be a little bit concerned about like the dagger pumps. I think now is probably a good time as any to go ahead and just cash in the civic duty. Again, we know they're coming up on the Bittering anyway, so we might just have to like give this to them at some point. Yeah, I think it's probably fine. Like, we're at the point where we can just like pressure their life total now, so like maybe giving them the vigor is not actually that big of a deal. All right, and then now the question, I guess, is do we have to worry about a pummel? I think that was like the one thing that could actually like kill us outright. So the way I guess we can play around pummel is doing something like this kind of block, and then sending fist and like discarding fruits just for some life padding. We are getting a little bit low in terms of like the life total race. I think the one thing that does kill us is the pummel here, so I think this plays around that. All right, but looks like they didn't have that here. Go ahead and just keep sending 5 though. Again, either they have to immovable this or they have to give us something else. All right, so they did have the immovable that they're sitting on. So predicted that accurately. Let's go ahead and just discard the fruits for the extra life gain value. And we'll make them play through this vigor. They might actually have the Bittering Thorns or looking for scrap back around, but we're kind of at the point in the game where it doesn't really matter all too much. And then, so I think here, what can they possibly actually have on this? It's like double react or something, or a double attack react, which would pump this to 6. I think we actually just do this and try to kill them with Macho now that they're off the immovable. I think this is the play. Even if they have like double legacy or something, it doesn't actually matter. They have 1 legacy. It only gets us to 2 though. And now we can just try to kill them with the Macho. I don't think they have a D-React for at this point. Yep, it looks like that'll do it. So again, at that point, we didn't actually get to set up the Vigor loop because we're like they're actually playing really smart and actually like preserving the Bittering in the deck, which is like you basically like lose tempo for doing that, but you do gain the like not getting time watch in late game, right? But at that game, we were basically just like, because they were sending inefficient numbers, right? We were basically able to just kill them with the Macho in the end because like they kind of just ran out of like the immovable, which we kind of like predicted was in their arsenal as well. This list is actually really interesting though, because I think like this style of Ira tends to do a little bit better against me just because they're running more like 2 costs that are a little bit harder to fatigue, so you have to be like a little bit more proactive. But there's like a trade-off here, like that they can't be as aggressive because they're not running as many like just base go-in attacks. So I think there are pros and cons to like this kind of style of Ira, but I think it's like very interesting that there's like a lot of like variation in the builds that you can kind of like play towards. Like I guess like what like this type of Ira plays like very differently for this deck versus like another style of Ira, which is really really cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get another. Playing against a Briar, I think we generally want to go second. That being said, Arcane Seeds is always a pleasure. So let's see if the Briar board still works. I'm kind of curious. So this is on multiple of the big D reacts. Let's go ahead and just run like a random humble. I think that's probably fine. Again, this matchup, like, it's typically pretty easy. Like, you don't really need to act super hard for it. We'll see how it goes. Again, we are running the -1 polarity, so that actually might make a substantial difference. We'll go ahead and see, though. One thing to actually be on the lookout for, and I guess this may be a good segue, is there are some variants of Ira that are doing kind of like the big damage Ira. They're more like a fatigue Ira, I guess. So I guess we're going to get the opportunity to kind of showcase this here. Fortunately for us, we have actually a pretty good start here. We can just start by giving our hand here and then also getting 2 life on the back. Or if our opponent's thinking on like a pummel or something, potentially terrifying. But yeah, it looks like they're on more of like the big kind of earth fatigue Briar. So we're going to have to be a little bit more proactive in this matchup. So Pummel actually is a really nice draw there because it means we can just send some efficient numbers, I guess, ourselves. Yeah, this variant of Briar is definitely interesting. It's still pretty fatiguable, though. We'll see. It depends, I guess, how many of these like bigger attacks they're running. If they're running a lot of like the Weave Earth cards, then I do think that they fatigue pretty fast. But if they're running more just like the big attacks, then we do have to be a bit mindful of that. Right, looks like they're gonna give us Burn Up Shock and Arcane Seed. So I actually didn't think that the like the big Earth Briar was running Burn Up, but maybe they're just running this for the they're running it just as like a Earth, like a 4-block because it's a non-attack action basically. So if their embodiments maybe get better or something. That's at least my speculation. Not 100% sure there. Right, just the Reaping Blade, and so this is actually looking like me like Nathan's list from like the card guys or something. So in this case, what do we want to do? Maybe just Oasis the Reaping Blade if we really want to. I don't think that's like actually terrible. Also saves a Staunch in the deck, which is kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and just like convert our hand nicely. We'll go ahead and use it on the Reaping Blade. I guess we'll pitch the Clash of Arms for later. At least we get to fully prevent that and just send Sirens in the back. Again, we're not going to gain life off the Sirens, which is maybe like a little bit unfortunate. But still fine. 6 damage is 6 damage. And yeah, we do want to be kind of a bit more proactive in this matchup just because they are going to probably have a lot more of a fatigue kind of endgame for us here. Losing the Staunch later in the deck is definitely like a little bit painful, though, I will admit. All right, looks like they're actually going to give us 2 Stir the Wild Road Reds, so some good value for us. Okay, and they are on the Evergreens as well. So yeah, definitely very scary. Evergreen is typically actually a pretty good threat against us, but let's go ahead and just make sure we're blocking out the embodiments. Making their blocking just a little bit worse here. Go ahead and keep sending with the Sirens. Again, this is a matchup that's going to probably go to fatigue again. Exciting. That being said, if they are on some number of blues, it depends how many Evergreens they're running. If they're also doing multiple Evergreens, it can be a little bit dicey. Because Evergreen is definitely pretty good. So in this game, we're basically going to try to focus on like maximizing our kind of like numerical output of basically every card in our deck. So making sure we get the most value out of each card. Like for the Staunch, for instance, if we get the opportunity to maybe block for 8 here, I think we're going to probably go ahead and try to take it. Even that's Sotomorrow's too. Okay, interesting. I guess it's still like net even on cards. I guess they get to like pick a good card to put in their deck for the late game. All right, they are on the Weavers though. That does also kind of bode pretty well for us. So we have a couple options on this hand. We can either block 8 with the Staunch, or we could block with the Mulch and block with the Flourish, and then make a Might and then send or something like that. All right, coming in for 11, so big swing here. So I think if they want to use the action point on the back end, we should just go ahead and give them the Civics here. I'm kind of also tempted to just like full Staunch this. Like, what if we blocked something like this? Full Staunch, and then just send like Mulch or something random on our turn. I think that's kind of reasonable. I don't actually want the Might token here, potentially. If you have a pummel, this could also get really awkward. Let's go ahead and just full block this. I want to try to just get the most out of our cards if they're going for like the evergreen late game thing. If they want to send like Reaping Blade here or something, I'm fine with that. Or if they have like another follow-up attack, I'm also okay with that. Yeah, if this is just like Reaping Blade swing, I'm pretty glad I actually used the Quicken there. I imagine they probably don't have a 1-cost follow-up if they're doing like the big Earth thing. Okay, they're actually going to go for like a 2-cost here. Oh, I did actually forget about the chess piece. That's maybe a minor punt on our end. You have dealt arcane damage to opposing hero's turn, gets +2. If it was fuse, he also gets +2. So coming for 6 if we don't pitch here. I guess we're gonna go ahead and just pitch. It's coming for 4. Okay, so that ended up punishing us slightly, but I guess we get to just kind of pitch our hand here. It's not that bad. So we give up the tempo a little. We can get that back pretty easily, and they did have to use a decent number of resources to go ahead and do that, so I'm kind of okay. The one nice thing about actually running the turn timber also in this matchup is that it makes it a little bit better against like this style of Briar, or it's like a nice hedge for that. That being said, it can be a little bit awkward in like the more aggro Briar matchups. Okay, let's see what their follow-up is here. Now we got the burn up shock. We will go ahead and not be. Actually wonder if we should be A-being for the stir the wildwood purposes. Consideration. Rites of Replenishment. If you dealt arcane damage this turn, you put a non-attack action card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. You attack if it was fused, and you put an attack. Okay, so you get to put a non-attack on the bottom. Pretty good. I guess maybe the burn up shock there is like 1 damage. Put some. It's like a 1 damage Sotomar or something like that. It's kind of interesting. So we don't, or we do care about this hitting, right? Because they do have the burn up shock on it. So we do need a full block this turn. Something I don't really want to do. I guess we can do like this, or no, maybe not that. We do staunch here. We can like block 3 on the reaping or something. One awkward thing is like we're not getting our fatigue value in, but I guess blocking out a burn up shock's probably worth it. I can just do something like this. Again, we do have to be pretty scared of those evergreens coming back around though. Go ahead and block with disable and then just arsenal the Oasis for next turn. I think that seems reasonable. Maybe that's actually why the burn up shocks in the deck is just like another kind of like arcane damage outlet for some of these like arcane damage effects. It's kind of interesting. All right, Renounce Grandeur could actually be quite nice here. See what their hand is. Okay, perfect. Just a Reaping Blade here, so that is probably best case scenario for us. Let's actually get the most amount of value out of our Sirens here. We can just like block 2 and then gain the 1 on the back since they're dealing the 1 damage to us. That's actually really nice for us. So their hand must be like really, really awkward here. All right, in that case, let's go ahead and just send the Renounce Grandeur here. So they showed us that you have a target Earth card like +4 or whatever. Maybe they're on like immovables or something. Like maybe they have like some kind of like react here or something. All right, looks like they are on the immovables as well. That kind of makes sense given their last hand. I feel like decks like this are always really interesting because it's like their plan seems like pretty good to us, but I kind of wonder like what their chain matchup is like. Or at least it doesn't seem like it's all that great for them. I mean, maybe it's a lot better than I'm giving it credit for. All right, let's go ahead and pitch. Light. Right, Arcane Polarity is awkward right this second, unfortunately. definitely tempted to just go ahead and use the Oasis. What's another play? Do we have enough Tamacho? We do not have enough Tamacho. Could just send the Sirens on our turn or something. That's also not very exciting. God, if this Arcane Polarity actually wasn't here, this would be a lot better. If we just had like any pitch card. Because Tamacho for 9 is actually probably pretty decent. Let's go ahead maybe and just get our Sirens value in that case then. I think I'm actually like kind of tempted to just pitch the Arcane Polarity away for later. I think Polarity is actually probably not going to be that great against them. We actually could probably just even use it right now. I doubt we're probably going to get much more value out of this. Like, I doubt we're going to get the full 4. Yeah, it's a bit awkward. Like, I kind of just don't even want this in my deck all that much. I guess we do have like one more Arcane Seeds to worry about. Maybe like pitching this was actually fine. I'm probably not going to end up using it here then, unless they like randomly deal Arcane damage. All right, I ping them with that is definitely like a little bit awkward. I guess it's not awkward against a Bramble Spark though. And 2 Bramble Sparks. Flourish. So they're definitely doing pretty good on the fatigue plan. That being said, we are a little bit ahead on life, so I'm going to try to make the most out of that. So how much is this coming in? We take... We like want to take a damage, but we also don't want to take a damage. I guess we do want to take a damage because like this is +2, but this is +4, right? So we should take at least 1. Pitch here. Or sorry, yeah, I guess we pay 0 into this one. Briar triggers, this goes to 10. I guess we're just sending the Titans just for 4 on our turn, which is not amazing, but it's probably fine. Let's go ahead. So the life gain would bring us down to 2. So we can go ahead and Oasis this here. Take 2, then our Polarity is live. Go ahead and take the damage here. Polarity back up to 15. I imagine they're probably just finishing with the Reaping Blade. So the awkward thing is here, we need to pressure their life total. It's going to be hard to do having to fight through the Blade Beckoners as well. The nice thing is we did cut the other polarity, so I guess it's a little bit better to do that in this matchup. Well, they're not even going to use the embodiment here. Interesting. Right, turn Timber, a little bit awkward without the Earth card, but still have a lot of them in the deck. So what's our plan here? Maybe just to Weave Earth is definitely a bit scary. They could actually be like blowing us up on a 5-card hand. Blue Weave Earth is less scary, I guess, though. The Rainbow Weave Earth decks are definitely a bit interesting. Yes, they haven't dealt Arcane to us here. They revealed the Summerwood Shelter. Interesting. You can actually probably safely just give them the Civics here. Maybe even the Civic Duty. And then we can block 5 here. Then Glacial, Arsenal, turn Timber. I think that's maybe the play. I just want to try to hold on to a turn Timber for a turn where it's actually going to matter. But yeah, giving them the Quicken here shouldn't matter unless they want to like pass with it, which I think I'm also fine with. Right, so they're Reaping. And we know they have the pseudo D-React in hand, so should be fine. Again, now we're also kind of losing on the life race as well as the deck race here, so still in a bit of a scary spot. That being said, they burned through a lot of their better non-attack actions. I guess we still have 2 Bramble Sparks left to worry about, and then 2 more Weave Earths. So they definitely still have a lot of pretty decent threats still left in the deck. I guess we're now kind of winning on fatigue, very slightly maybe. We know that they have that shelter in arsenal, so like we're kind of disincentivized from sending any like big attacks while that's still there. So they actually like might need to just play this out to make room for Evergreen at some point. All right, looks like we're gonna get the Blade. Oh, whoops! Sorry, we missed our arsenal there. There we go. All right, got our arsenal. Opponent has the Bramble Spark here with an Autumn's Touch. See how wide they're able to go here, though. We do have the, I guess, both the Turn Timber and the Staunch. Right, just on an Autumn's Touch is not that scary, especially if they're just pitching an immovable and the Summerwood Shelter. So in this case, what do we want to do? What's like the most efficient use of our resources? It's probably just like 1 plus Staunch here. Yeah, I guess we still want to hold on to the Turn Timber, right? So let's go ahead and pay 1 with the Flash of Heads here. I guess we can like pitch away the Macho or whatever. Seems fine. I guess maybe it was slightly better to have the pitch the blue there in case they want to go for like a Sigil of Suffering on their turn or something. But we do know that they're on these shelters, so I guess it shouldn't be that bad for us. So still sitting 4, which is at least nice. And then we're getting some defensive fatigue value, I guess, with the staunches. We are unfortunately out of all of the like put a card back in your deck kind of reacts, so we only have the Turn Timber left. So let's see if I can get the max value out of the Turn Timber before we start getting close to dying here. That being said, I think their Summerwood Shelters and their removals might start to be really awkward. Because they don't want to like give 2 cards to a Titan's Fist, right? At a certain point, they might end up just like being okay with doing that, though. Yeah, they've had some really actually like pretty sick turns on us. Like the double weavers actually end up adding, I feel like, a lot of damage. Right, we're getting them close though. Right, Bramble Spark, another Weaver to the rights. So we do want to deny the king here if we can help it. That being said, they are going to be able to swing the Rune Blade on the back, so a really, really good turn from them. So how do we most efficiently block this? So we want to save the Flourish for sending Titan's Fist for 3 on our turn, which means that the Turn Timber, we pitch 2 Clash cards block here. Oh no, I think this works, right? We pitch here, Turn Timber, reveal the Flourish, and then block, I guess, with like Civic Duty or whatever. Then we just block Clash of Arms on the Reaping Blade swing. I think this works out. A little bit awkward, I guess, with all the block cards, and I guess the pitch stack is going to be a little bit awkward. I guess not too awkward, right? We're getting rid of one of them, so it doesn't really matter all that much. But yeah, we just want to make sure we're cashing in our Titan's Fist swing every turn. All right, we're now almost out of armor too, which is a little bit scary. But that being said, if they have the like Summerwood Shelters or whatever that card's called, should actually be in decent shape. It looks like they're almost out of their non-attacks. They have like 1 more Arcane Seeds maybe, and then also maybe 1 more like yellow Weaverth or something, assuming that they're running like all the copies of the card or whatever. So at a certain point, they should start petering out a little bit. That being said, they do still have like a lot of good late game potential, I imagine. But yeah, we just need to make sure we're getting our weapon swing in every turn, because that's how I think we're going to end up fatiguing the Evergreens. All right, there's Evergreen from hand, so that's actually -1 Evergreen in the deck, which is actually really, really cool. So we'll go ahead and just cash in the Mulch here and the Clash of Legs. I think we're going to end up just like overpitching the such like Mega Might or whatever. I don't think they're going to have like a react or anything for this, right? Like we know that they don't have like Pummel or whatever. It looks like these Summerwood Shelters are not actually all that great into us, just because like if we're committing to like swing weapon, it's kind of just like a do nothing card basically, or it's like +1 value or like whatever. But yeah, they should probably still have one more copy of Evergreen that they're maybe gonna play towards. I imagine they're gonna have to like clear that Summerwood Shelter out of Arsenal at some point in the game, right? Like they can't just sit on it, otherwise their Evergreens are gonna basically be do nothings. But yeah, this version of Briar is like super interesting to me. Like it's really good against us specifically, but like I wonder what the advantage is to like play this into the field in general. Like I feel like the chain matchup for the other variant of Briar, like the more aggro variant, is like a lot better. But you do have like a lot of like good just like value equity in this deck. Like it almost feels like you're playing like a Florian kind of thing. Looks like they're gonna give us the Twine Earth and Flourish here. So I feel like this is maybe the point where the deck, like they had some really good turns on us, but this is the point I feel like when the deck is maybe gonna start to break down a bit on their end, or at least the consistency of it. Like it seems like they're maybe drawing into some really awkward hands that they can't like fully capitalize on. They do have the Arcane Seeds here though, so they're gonna get a bit of value there. And we can go ahead and just block, and I think we're gonna block to just make the Might here. And maybe just give them the Glacial here, and then like overpitch the Clash or whatever. I think that seems fine. Yeah, we're never gonna send Macho here just because we know that they have the functionally the D-React in Arsenal. So we can go ahead and just like safely overpitch it here. Again, I guess now we're giving them like maybe more of an excuse to use it, but it's still like kind of the same. Like they're getting, I guess, like an extra +2 value on it or whatever. It still doesn't seem like super impressive here. And we're mostly just doing this to kind of like preserve the value in deck. All right, so they're gonna get the full value out of here because it's on a Flourish. But we are pretty close to decking them at this point. And especially if they're not going to be sending the what's it called, the Evergreen at us as well. So I actually kind of almost just want to take this damage, or maybe we can go ahead and just give them like the Blade Beckoner. So we go to 3, and then we can like send Glacial and make a Might on the back end. I think that's actually probably worth it. That being said, they do still have the other shelters in the deck and the Immovable. Maybe I'm still like not incentivized to do that. Maybe we'll not do that instead. Maybe we'll go ahead and just like block with the Earthquake here. I think that's fine. Because again, we're like never incentivized to ever send any damage because of how many like functional D-Reacts they have kind of left in their deck at this point. So go ahead and just keep overfishing. We might actually Arsenal a Flourish here. How many Earth cards have we actually used? Still have a lot of Earth left in the deck. Like we have 1 Autumn's Touch, 1 Fruits. So saving the Flourish and Arsenal seems reasonable. That being said, we do have to set up a Might for it. We can't just use Titan's Fist. Which is a interaction I learned after like 400 games of the deck, is that Flourish doesn't work on Titan's Fist if you have like a Earth card or just a 3 cost in the pitch. You have to like be actively buffing the Titan's Fist because of the wording on it. Alright, looks like they're gonna go ahead and give us the fruits. They're maybe even gonna shelter this. But yeah, I figured that at some point they're just gonna have to like get it out of deck, right? Makes sense. So we are actually decking them at this point, which is nice. We do still have to obviously worry about the Evergreens, but again, we still have a lot of our block cards left in the deck at this point, so not too worried. And let's go ahead and just give them one of the block cards here. I think it's actually fine to just like save the block cards though. I'm trying to think of like, I guess they're pretty nice against the Evergreens, so saving them in the deck I think makes a bit of sense. Let's go ahead and just give them like the Thunderquake here. And we still have that red Summerwood Shelter. They maybe even have a what else do they have? They have one Evergreen, one Unmovable, a couple Summerwood Shelters or something. Like I think we have one more copy of each of these as well. So like I think we're still doing like pretty good on fatigue though. Like we somehow like managed to just go like up 8 cards just because they ended up swinging like Reaping Blade every turn. And like our version of Reaping Blade is just slightly better. So we should probably start seeing. All right, looks like they're going to Sotomaro the Evergreen back. Or no, they're getting Rites of Replenishment. Okay, interesting. Okay, I have no idea. I thought they were going to go for like, maybe they all still have like the red Evergreen. Just playing that for extra value or something. It's interesting. I wonder how many ways they actually have to do like arcane damage at this point. All right, they have Weave, Earth, Summerwood Shelter and Removal and Pitch. And I think we should know what the other two cards are, but I'm kind of blanking out. I think it's like Blue Autumn's Touch, and then they have their Rights of the Front. So it's Blue Autumn's Touch, Rights of Replenishment, Unmovable, and Summerwood Shelter. Okay, so that's basically the remaining cards we have to worry about here. Let's go ahead and give them the Clash of Legs, and I guess we can maybe go ahead and block with another Flourish. I think that's fine. Yeah, we should start seeing their Evergreens coming up at some point here. That being said, they do have to like not die while they only have like one blue left in the deck or something like that. Super interesting game state, but I think we're still winning this. Like the Evergreen doesn't, like, even if they are still in here, I don't think it really does very much against us, right? At least I'm assuming that's what their last card is, because I imagine they would run around more than one. Or no, sorry, it's the Weave Lightning. Isn't that what it is? Yeah, I don't think they actually have like a way to win from this position. So let's go ahead and just give them the block card here. And we can go ahead and just use that Flourish out of the bin as well. And yeah, we'll go ahead and Flourish that. Send in. I guess we can IP with the Canopy. It shouldn't really matter. I guess this does give them an excuse to use their stupid Immovable, but I think I'm actually like fine with them using that at this point. And yeah, it seems like their hand was like 2 Summerwood Shelters, a Immovable, and then like a Weaver. So yeah, their hand was like pretty bad. I'm kind of curious, like, why. I guess the one Evergreen does make sense because they can like Sotomaro it back, but I'm curious like why they didn't go for that. I guess they just like maybe didn't have the resources for it or whatever. But this is like a interesting take on Briar that I think is like will catch people off guard. That being said, I think this is like the worst. That being said, I think this variant of Briar is like a bit worse into chain. Like you just can't output the same like aggro numbers, I feel like. And like you're kind of like giving chain like a lot of opportunity to like set up and stuff. And at least that's what it seems like on my end. I don't actually know. Maybe it plays out a little bit differently. Like they were setting some like big numbers here and there. It just didn't feel like all that much when like compared to like Rune Gate Chain, right, which is like sending like a ton of damage or whatever. But yeah, that was an interesting game. I think that's probably going to be it for today though. So pretty long games, unfortunately. I did want to try to like showcase the chain matchup because I think I'm still like working on that matchup the most. I think that's like the most opportunity for improvement. But I think like it's either there has to be like some answer to chain. Whether that answer is chain eating a ban at some point, maybe like Pummel also be getting limited to like the red Pummel or something like that, or maybe just like reduction of mobs, or like maybe chain gets a ban, or like some like less tools, or maybe like Pen introduces some new tools to allow decks to like deal with chain. These are all like maybe considerations, and maybe there is some like secrets tech still like hang out. Maybe Hand Behind the Pen will make an appearance at some point. But I think there's definitely some opportunity to, I guess, explore the chain matchup a little bit more. But yeah, this deck is still really good. I think you can also play the list that I played in the Battle Harden as well. I think that list also felt pretty good. But again, I think the way like chain lists have evolved, I'm still like kind of working on that matchup probably the most out of any matchup, just maybe for the upcoming like Sage events like in San Diego or whatever. But yeah, anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And again, I think Terra, again, well, anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and let me know what your thoughts are on Terra or Marlynn. Again, we're going to do some Marlynn content later this week, but I know that folks have been enjoying the Silver Age stuff. So yeah, feel free to let me know what you want to see next. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.